But what I'm looking for is your most memorable parts of your life since high school.
Oh, since high school?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty forgettable for me.
You mean you peaked out at high school?
Yeah, I think so. Pretty much peaked out after high school. No, did a lot of little things in Corsicana after high school, and didn't really find what I was interested in, so I joined the Navy for a short period of time, 6 months active duty, and after that came to Dallas and found something more suitable for me.
Okay, and what was that?
And that was working for a freight line company, and I did everything for them. I mean, from sweeping the floors, driving bobtail trucks, 18-wheelers, forklifts, whatever they have that had wheels on it, I could take care of that for them. And that's what I did.
In Corsicana?
No, Dallas.
Oh, in Dallas. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. And what about family? Do you have family?
We have. I have my wife. We've been married for 56 years. 12 grandchildren, 1 great grandchild.
Wow.
And everybody's still married to the originals. That's a big deal.
Good. And you, sir?
Since high school, I went to college and got out and got a banking job in Dallas at Republic National Bank. And I've had 3 main jobs in my life, and I was fired from all 3 of them. And but I survived. All the companies we either sold or went out of business, so that's why I lost my job. But I ended up being a mortgage banker, and I retired kind of early, so I went into the business of supporting our church, and I became manager of the Habitat for Humanity effort at our church. And
which church is that?
It's Highland Park Methodist, and we are, by the end of next year, we'll have finished 500 houses.
Oh, wow.
So it's the largest commitment of a church in the world, the Habitat for Humanity. So that's kind of what I'm proudest of, rather than my many careers.
And I believe he hosted Jimmy Carter at his home.
Is that right?
President Jimmy Carter. Yes.
I was just gonna say, has Jimmy Carter gotten involved at all with your church?
Well, to the extent that he was here about 3 or 4 years ago on his 90th birthday. And yes, we had a conversation, Jimmy and I did. And we got along fine, even though I'm not of his political persuasion.
Okay. And he didn't convince you, huh?
Well, he didn't try. He's a good Christian man, and I give him credit for that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, he's quite something. In fact, I think he's done more since he was president than perhaps he did as president.
I think we can agree on that.
But what a leader. And let me ask you both this. How did your high school education, your time at Corsicana High School, how did it really set a foundation for what you were later to get involved with?
Well, we thought this was pretty much standard countrywide, nationwide. I mean, the lifestyle that we had in Corsicana, a man and a woman married, and you have brothers and sisters, and everything, it just sort of falls into place by itself with no real apparent effort. And that was sort of a little bit of a wake-up call later in life when things didn't go exactly like they were when we were growing up.
Yeah.
I'd have to say this. Corsicana's high school, as we were talking about this morning, that high school produced probably some great students, but it had some super, super teachers. And I will say this, that I think I came out of high school sharper and smarter than I did when I graduated from SMU 4 years later.
Okay.
Oh, my. Now, that's awful to say. I partied a lot in college, is what
I've lived a very large life, very grand, very large. And
Give some of the
I lived. I have a PhD, and I taught at the University of Texas in Tyler for 25 years. and I taught interpersonal and intercultural communication. But when I graduated, let me see, where do I start? Just a minute. In my first marriage, I guess we married when I was about 22 or something like that. It was in the late 60s. And Homer and I lived abroad. I've lived under two dictators, Generalissimo Franco in Spain and Papadopoulos in Greece. Oh, and life goes on and on and on. And anyway, I had a Fulbright scholarship in 1989, and after that, went back to Yugoslavia, Zagreb, and worked on the battlefronts when the country broke apart, and they were having their wars. I reported war atrocities from the battlefront, and those were years that changed my life, hugely changed my life, because I went with a friend of mine who was a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. And
who were you reporting to?
We were selling our articles. So it was wherever. My photograph just followed her. Nobody would have bought my photographs, but they wanted her articles. And so they just she supported what she was writing.
And who was that journalist?
Sherry Riccardi is her name. It's funny because what she's doing now is she's traveling, it seems like all over the world, helping reporters understand how to work on the battlefronts without getting killed. And she's basing it on what we did wrong, and we did everything wrong. It's such a miracle that we weren't killed. But anyway, we called ourselves frontline junkies because we got addicted to the adrenaline. And I really understand why reporters just go back and go back and go back to the battlefronts.
Can you give an example of one of the most harrowing times that you had when you did that?
I don't know why, but in Zagreb, Sherry and I became sort of recognized as two women who were kind of fearless and would go anywhere else, and there were more journalists killed in the beginning of that conflict than ever before, because the Serbs did not want anybody telling the horrible things they were doing. And so there were a lot of journalists dying at that time. But we were so stupid, ignorant, that we just went straight to the battlefront. We would find out where the worst battles were, and we'd go there. We rented a car in Italy. We would fly, that's where we got our car, and we would drive into war zones with it. But so one time when we were staying at the Intercontinental Hotel, where journalists gathered, and found out what they should be doing, we were called on to go to this village, and it was in Croatia, and drivers were sent for us because this Croatian village had been massacred, and the people there were tortured.
Was that in eastern Croatia?
It's in eastern Croatia. I can't tell you what part of Croatia.
What was the name of the town? Do you recall?
I can't remember the name of the town either, and I should. In my records, I have the title of the town. But we reported a lot of what was going on in Vukovar. I do remember that because it was occupied for so long. But this little town was, they weren't soldiers. and the Serb soldiers who went into the village weren't fighting with other soldiers. They just tortured the bodies. And we found them in the middle of the street with their bodies burned, just burned in the middle of the street. And also they were, like men's penises would be cut off and stuffed in their mouths, and women's breasts were cut off. And I mean, these were men and women who were peasants. They were farmers. They were innocent. They'd never done anything bad. And yet they were made an example of for the rest of Croatia. So anyway, we were taken in to photograph and write about them. So I had to photograph these poor tortured bodies. And I would photograph one and apologize to them. I felt so bad because it wasn't my training to be a photographer or a journalist. And the only reason I got to go is because my friend just dragged me along and said, you are my photographer. Because when we were scholars, when we were Fulbright scholars, I lucked out and took a lot of good photographs. And so that's what she remembered me for. You know how to take good photographs. You're going with me. So that's what started the whole thing. And then I got addicted. I just kept
So how long did you do this?
Over a 2-year period. And I stopped going as soon as I could no longer tell the good guys from the bad guys. And I said, I don't want to go back. I love the Croatians, but I saw some of the most horrible things that they were doing, and I said, I can't go back. Anyway, those days changed me,
Okay.
and I suffered. In my heart, I was just so sad over seeing people suffer like that. Good people suffer like that. And Dubrovnik, you should have seen Dubrovnik the last time I was there. If you've been to Dubrovnik, you will know it's a beautiful town. It's a walled.
Yeah, it's on that huge cliff, right? Isn't it?
And when I was there last, it was being bombed, and so marble streets and monasteries with beautiful red tile roofs were being bombed and bombed. The Serbs, Dubrovnik was protected by UNESCO as a treasure city. But the Serbs bombed it and bombed it and bombed it. They didn't care. The Nazis refused to touch it because it was declared a treasure. But the Serbs were awful. They were just horrible. But anyway, that was something that really changed my life.
What about, was there some foundation that you developed at Corsicana High School that kind of you've been able to carry over the next 60 years?
Well, I think it's important to have close friends that you feel safe with and that can make you feel courageous. It kind of gives you that impetus for doing anything you want to do and feeling safe to do anything you want to do. So Corsicana and my experiences in high school are part of that. I've been very, very courageous in my life, doing things I should never have done. I should have died many times. But I had no fear for a long, long time in my life. But now I find myself developing fears. I have this funny little fear of heights that I've never had before in my life, and close places, and I don't know why. I just, they give me the creeps. Go figure, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
The last job I had was probably the most rewarding. It paid the most, so that makes it pretty important. Over these years, probably the last 25 years, I've been investing. And over that period of time, I've done very well, so I'm going to be able to pay for my 2 granddaughters to go to college, expenses free, which I'm proud to be able to do. So that's pretty much a highlight. And I married a wonderful lady, and been together now 43 years.
Okay. And family, children?
Pardon?
Children?
One daughter, one stepdaughter, my stepdaughter, but she's Roberta's daughter. And she's got 2 grandchildren. That's the one that are going to send to college.
Okay. And what would you say would be something that you got at Corsicana High School? What kind of foundation did it give you for the next 60 years?
Oh, I think, what you learn a lot about stress and trying to fit in and trying to do well and being a good citizen. And I think that's probably what is the basis for your whole life, really. You've done well in high school in that situation, you'll do well in life.
Well, we met in the 6th grade in Robert E. Lee here in Corsicana, and therefore we went through high school together and ended up at the same university. We didn't date a lot in high school, but some.
We had 4 dates in high school.
Yeah. And then we went off to college, and our relationship kind of grew after we got off in college.
What college was it?
The University of Texas at Austin.
It's a good place. It's a good place.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
a big place.
Anyway, then we found out we had an awful lot in common, and the feelings developed, and we ended up getting married right after we got out of college, and went to East Texas to start our careers and stay there for many, many years. And,
Are you still there, or are you back in Corsicana?
well, actually, about a year ago, we retired and moved from East Texas over up into the Dallas area, where some of our family have moved, and they wanted us up closer to them so they could help keep us under control.
Okay. All right. So what were your careers and so forth that you had?
I went into medical technology, worked at hospitals, doing lab work, and then I turned into a professional student, and I went back to grad school and ended up with several degrees, and I ended up teaching that subject, diagnostic medicine, in
Whereabouts?
and I had a community college in Tyler Junior College, and then at Tarleton State University in Fort Worth as part of the A&M system, and I retired from that one.
Okay. And you?
I graduated from UT Austin, like I say, and went to work with a CPA firm in Tyler, and therefore spent most of my career in public accounting and got my CPA and practiced public accounting for many years, and then went to work in industry and was a controller and CFO for various companies throughout the rest of my career, and had some connections with corporations in Dallas, and spent some time driving back and forth into the Dallas area to work for some corporations up there. And keeping up with our family, which we had 3 boys, and it seemed like all the time they were going through college, I was spending half of my time moving them from one college to another or one apartment to another and so forth. But it was fun.
And tell me a little about your kids.
We have 3 sons, and they were a joy to raise, and they're still a joy. One of them is, the oldest one is Steve, and he is a CPA. And the middle one is Greg, and he's an accountant also. He married an accountant too. And he
This
works,
really rubbed off then,
it
didn't it?
really
Really
has.
did,
It really
unfortunately.
did. And he works in the IT department with Mary Kay Cosmetics. And we have a son in Colorado, just north of Denver, and he's an emergency physician.
Oh, great. Terrific. And what would you say is a certain foundation that maybe developed in Corsicana High School that kind of has lasted you these last 60 years? What would you say?
I feel like we had a good, solid foundation in our core courses that put us into college. I had a few perfectionist teachers, and that taught me well. I enjoyed the social aspect of high school, like most kids do. I had some very, very good friends. I met my husband there, so.
Yeah.
With me, one of the things that I think I kind of learned in Corsicana, and it kind of rolled over into my family, which was not from Corsicana originally. They were rural people raised on a farm and so forth. But the expectations that the school and the community and the parents and everybody had for the future of this generation that was going through Corsicana at that time, the expectation was you will better yourself, and it's an understood fact. You can do it, and you will do it. So it was a matter of fact that we would strive to better ourselves than just go from point A to point B and take the easy route. And I think a lot of that was kind of a part of the culture of Corsicana and the adults of Corsicana, the families that grew up there, and our friends.
Accountability,
Yeah.
respectability,
Absolutely.
Yeah, that
ethics,
makes
strong
sense.
ethics, that's family values.
No idea. I didn't even remember where this was.
Where do you live now?
I'm in Whitney.
Okay. What are some of your memorable moments since high school? Oh boy. Your most memorable moments.
I guess getting to see the world while I was in service.
Okay. Can you tell about that a little bit?
I went to Turkey for a year,
When was that?
62.
Okay. What branch were you in?
The Army.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a good time over there. I enjoyed it. I got to see most of Europe coming back.
Okay. How did it influence you?
I liked the military. I didn't have no problem with it. A lot of people didn't like it, especially the young ones.
Well, you were pretty young yourself, though. When you were
I was 20. I was 20 when I went in. 26 when I got my discharge. Other than that, it just get up and go to work. Say it back. I got to find my running buddy if he's going to be here, Jimmy Dawson.